Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Digital Leader Show, where we talk key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology in hopes of making you a better digital leader. Hosted by Dan Goodstein and IRPA AI, a professional association, media and peer research network, providing education, networking and advice to over 130,000 global members on automation, enterprise AI, and digital transformation. We're live Wednesdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the audio recording is available wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Dan Goodstein.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leader Show. Today, we're discussing requiring call centers to stay in America and limiting AI, plus headlines for digital leaders from the world of enterprise technology. My co-host is Kieran Gilmurray. He's a senior analyst to IRPA AI, author and industry thought leader, globally recognized authority on AI automation and digital transformation. Kieran, it's been a minute, buddy. Good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, it's been a while. Sort of been traveling around the world. So tonight we're coming in, or today we're coming in from Abu Dhabi. Been in the Middle East for a month, and I kind of like it. What an amazing part of the world, Dan. And that other bit, that seeing something internationally, seeing how different people do things globally, always interesting. So can't wait to share my opinions, not just on this part of the world, but on the US side of things as well. How is that crazy end of the world?
Yeah, it gives you some perspective being away for a little while, right? Yeah, it's well, I was going to ask you your perspective, but yeah, it's a little crazy. It's difficult, I think. I was reading an interview, I forget who it was last night, but it's the biggest challenge is just kind of deciphering, what's real and what's just political theater, which will also be part of our conversation with this call center legislation. But yeah, just a lot of news sound bites, Kieran. A lot to watch. Entertaining, if nothing else.
Absolutely. Well, let's see if we can make some sense of this for everyone, or at least put a new fake spin on it.
Yeah, sounds good. So we'll start with our headlines. So IBM just joined the ranks, Kieran, in the global tech world for major layoff announcement. Another article this week that their thousands are being kind of cut. Just more uncertainty, AI, future of work. We're seeing it all over the place, but now IBM as well.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is AI related. Do you know what I mean? Because we've seen the same thing with Amazon recently. We've seen the same thing announced, Microsoft a little while ago, getting rid of developers, and everybody likes to badge it as AI. But when you look at this part of the world, Europe and beyond, you're starting to see a lot of uncertainty created around tariffs. That goes without saying. Higher cost, higher uncertainty, people not hiring. And then I sometimes wonder if we're the product of our own imagination. What I mean by that is, if we keep talking about, graduates, young graduates won't get jobs, then I'm sure there's employers there going, well, nobody else is hiring graduates. I better not hire graduates. And then I've seen this before. Dan, you and I have seen this, 20 years ago with the internet.
Seen this movie before, right?
We've seen this movie, ERP, CRM, workflow, metaverse, saying the same thing, Hail Mary pass, everything will be fixed by it till everybody calms down. And then we get on with, hopefully good architecture, good infrastructure to actually make this world of work for everyone. But for IBM, you have to be careful here as well how we do these things, because the attrition rate every year, off a 300,000-400,000 workforce is about 5 or something percent. It's about 15,000 employees, and it's not a small number. They just leave by natural attrition. So if IBM don't actually hire, net, they're in the same place. I do see though, and like everything in life, a change in actual skill set, because it was Julie Sweet the other day, wasn't it? Accenture came out with and said, look, we've trained 77% of a workforce. We need them to learn AI. And if you can't learn AI, you're out of a job, and the way I look at it, and goodness help anybody who has got a family, who's going through all this, we have a tremendous amount of responsibility to ourselves to never get ourselves in a position where we become unemployed, so we need this lifelong learning. the signs have been out there for years. And today we've a heck of a lot less saddlers in the world than we do software engineers. And the world of work says in the next, 5, 10, 15 years, we'll have a lot less software engineers and we'll have something else. So I think it's up to us to own our own careers. I see what companies are doing. I see how things are attributed. This to me demands what I call, one of the three legs of the stool to be owned by everyone. And that is, you got the business strategy, the tech strategy, but the people strategy. And the advice I would give everyone is don't wait for someone else to, make a choice in your career. Go set your own career path. Look at the smoke signals. And let's be honest, AI is not new. It's an 85-year-old overnight success story. This bandwagon has been around for the last 3 or 4 years. Waiting and not learning about this tech, that's, dare I say, criminal for your career.
Yeah, so you could argue it's, obviously, like you say, kind of initially concerning for the workforce if you're in it. But arguably, you say Heron is more around, the jobs that maybe don't come back, at least not in the same way, maybe not to the same skill set people, right? And so there's this kind of rebalancing thing happening. I saw another article this morning about Paramount having a huge job cuts as it relates to forcing people back to this again, forcing people back to the office, return to office mandates, and people deciding that they're not going to do that. So, is that really a return to office, or is that just a cute way of cutting workforce and blaming the employees instead of saying we're cutting our workforce? But definitely a rebalancing happening.
Yeah, well, look, you know yourself. Let's not be shy about these things because we're here to give our audience, the actual God's honest truth. If you want rid of employees, doesn't matter the legislation, you can get rid of them. You can create the situations where you can make it uncomfortable to remove people out of the business. But the old story is so true here. A lot of these companies are doing it. The share price goes up or goes down depending on the mood of the market for that particular day. But like everything, Dan, and you and I are consultants, we've done company restructures to help them survive. The real message is not just to those who you're exiting, who you should exit with dignity. The real message is to those employees who are remaining behind, who you need on mission, all excited, all delighted, all part of the party and wanting to move forward. So all these companies that are going out to the market, dare I say, gleefully announcing their redundancies in line with their AI strategy, you wonder what message that actually sends to the existing employees. Is it your turn will come soon?
Well, and also to their customers, right?
Well, do their customers care? And that goes back to a different comment. How many customers have ever rocked up at an employer's door and went, "Why are you laying off your staff? We're not going to deal with you." So, and they're, I've never seen it. Rarely seen it unless someone they absolutely adore and it's critical to their service, but companies won't let them go. That doesn't happen. And then the worst and the saddest part is, because we've all been part of this as well, as soon as people are laid off in 6 months' time, it's old news and everyone forgets anyway, So what is today's newspaper is tomorrow's fish and chip packet, which is dreadful comment on ourselves. But it's shocking, to see the numbers. But every year there's huge numbers. That's not to condone it or anything else. But it goes back to my argument, folks. Take control of your own career. The one thing that's causing such impact, if you look at the pestle analysis or whatever else in the last decade, 2 decades, is the technology bit. Have to own your own career and can't wait on anybody else to serve you fish and chips. You need to adopt a lifelong learning mentality, and any opportunity to learn inside or outside of work, just grab it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know what we're going to do with all this extra unemployed time, because shopping is becoming automated thanks to AI as well. There's this court battle going on. Amazon is suing Perplexity AI for letting its autonomous comment agent make purchases on users' behalfs. So yeah, it's this battle for who's going to own shopping. Obviously, Amazon wants to. I've actually played around with this. I haven't had it go as far as actually making the purchases for me, because that scares the heck out of me. But I have had it do 85-90% of the work on booking flights and comparing rates and routes and that kind of stuff. And I know you just published an article on generative engine optimization. We had a show about that a few weeks ago also. So it's very, very interesting space as not only the search space, but the shopping and e-commerce space evolves.
Yeah, it's all connected, isn't it? Because ultimately, when you think about it, Google has dominated for years, still does to a large degree. We click on the blue links, we land on the page, and we buy it, or Amazon themselves. That's where we go direct. And Amazon have benefit by disintermediating other people. So it's kind of funny that the shoe is on the other foot, where someone like Perplexity or OpenAI, who now, again, same thing, they almost kickstarted this saying, we'll now embed Binance or embed purchases, kind of like embedded banking, but embedded purchasing within their own platform itself. So what is it? Booking.com, Shopify's 1 million clients, all these people can buy direct inside of OpenAI itself. So for Amazon to do this, it's almost comical. But what they're looking at is, potentially getting disintermediated. And it was only a couple of months ago that OpenAI, for whatever figures you agree or disagree with, says, look, we got 900 million monthly or weekly users. That's 10% of the global population. That's a heck of the Western internet buying public going through that direct route. And if they can buy direct, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy direct from Amazon either. It'll take a whack of traffic from them. But the horse is bolted. Good luck, saying that, we don't want robots on our website. Of all the companies who use AI so much to define product, to work at prices, to use what I describe as pseudo airline pricing to up and down the cost of goods, to look at product that's selling on the website as well, and then create their own brand products, to suddenly say to someone else, no, you may remove some traffic from us, so we're not allowing it, but we're okay using AI ourselves. And yes, we've disintermediated most people. So now it's kind of, justice is being served. I personally love a competitive market. And therefore, rather than banning it, and this is the ridiculousness of, universities and schools banning AI, businesses banning AI or commenting to their staff, yeah, it wasn't you, it was AI that did it, and it's like technophobia. So the more competition, the better, more innovation, the better. The fact that Perplexity, all these engines are doing it is great. And if it breaks up a little bit of Google's monopoly and causes Google to work that little bit harder for you and for me, then absolutely fantastic. So it would, if it wasn't so comical and ironic, it'd be, oh my goodness, don't do that, folks. That's just silliness.
And if it's not crazy enough, on the non-financial side of things, just on the technical side of things, most of these companies, I was reminded by this article in the Wall Street Journal this morning, most of these companies are not even profitable. Wall Street Journal is reporting Anthropic leads OpenAI in the race to product profitability, that they're going to be profitable, I guess, next year. And OpenAI is not expecting to be profitable until 2030. But meanwhile, they just keep getting more and more investments. SoftBank just sold their entire stake in NVIDIA partially to fund their OpenAI investment. And I don't know what I think the valuation now of OpenAI is like 200 billion or something like that. Crazy. It's actually, funny enough, reminiscent of Amazon years ago, right? Running for a long time without any profitability.
Yeah. Again, no surprises in the tech world, where I thought for a while post-COVID, we had actually gone back to sense and sensibility, which was, imagine those old things, Dan, called profit or cash flow or margin, the traditional things that used to actually exist that allowed a business to work. But this is one where, they've captured the imagination, they've captured the market. For me, the concern is not will they make money, because you can see with the product what they're doing. You can see it's powerful and useful. And when you go back 2 years, you and I were creating bubble wrap characters of ourselves using OpenAI as the most sophisticated prompters in the market. And today, thanks to some of the AI that's happening, we're unfolding proteins, and that's in 2 or 3 years. You can imagine what version 10 is like. But I would like to see them going back to some economics. Because seeing the thing this morning about OpenAI, true or false, I don't know. But it said, for every $3 they spend, they get $1 in income. And like, how long can that be sustained for? Amazon, you said that was what, 10, 15 years. So it's a big bet. But the worrying thing is that the incestuous nature of, OpenAI investing in NVIDIA chips, NVIDIA putting money into OpenAI to buy part or to get part of the company so it can then buy chips, to raise debt. Oracle, been given a contract by OpenAI and then investing in, the interconnectivity of all of the money borrowing and spending and investing. If that's a house of cards where it starts to break, then that's a heck of a lot of broken eggs over the next couple of years. I haven't seen the signs of it yet. I don't want to talk us into it, but when you actually map who's invested in who, NVIDIA sits at the middle of a lot of different companies and they're all investing in each other. I just hope it's not anything like, remember the banking crisis where everybody borrowed money and then they lost it all.
Yeah.
This feels initially like they're running their own cash flow, which is fine. Do you know what I mean? So if Meta, Facebook or someone, struggles, something happens, it's all coming out of that, not global markets. So the actual fallout might not be as bad as was in 2008.
No, but this has definitely been talked about, I think, especially in the U.S. on this side of the pond, this so-called AI bubble thing, because the amount of money that's kind of incestuously kind of moving around over here is becoming more and more consolidated. Especially as these guys buy up smaller AI startups, buy up infrastructure, even power plants in some cases. Meta took a hit this week based on this. They're saying that their AI expenditures could hit 72 billion with a B this year and climb even higher next year. This is just after they got a little hurt when they put all the eggs in the Meta basket, and then what happened to that? Metaverse thing? Is that still a thing? I don't know.
Wasn't that the golden goose of the day as it lasted for a couple of years? And that, I suppose there's the tragedy, isn't it? Metaverse does actually work in all the right circumstances. And I'm not talking about gaming, health, safety, driving machine, all those types of things. Or, it really, really works. But again, nothing like building up a good story and then it crashing down. And then what happens is people lose faith in good technology, and at the moment, they haven't lost faith in AI, but you and I know we've had winters and summers for the last, 85 years when people have got excited or not. But you can see why people are nervous. With NVIDIA sitting in the middle of that as what, a 4.5 trillion company. AMD invested in NVIDIA, invested in OpenAI. Oracle invested in OpenAI, invested in NVIDIA, XAI invested in NVIDIA, Intel invested in NVIDIA. It's just, do you remember that game you used to pull with straws when you were a child and the marbles dropped? I'm just hoping it's not a game of marbles. I did see an interesting one. I'd seen Jeff Bezos on stage. I say I've seen him. That makes it sound as if it was in the audience. So we leave that perception there, but it was online. And what he said was, look, who knows? He said, look, no, nothing's certain in the world. Take that for granted. He said, look, we lost money for years. Nobody believed in what we were saying. Now look at it. The fundamentals were all there eventually. We knew the scale of the tech and everything would catch up. We knew it really would go. I look at what's been produced by AI at the moment, and I'm amazed. And I've been in this business 30-something years. Was in AI as a chief AI officer 20 years ago, something. What we're seeing is nothing short of absolutely extraordinary, but it kind of needs to work because there's a lot of bets, and that game of Jenga, that game of whatever it is, marbles and things. Hopefully not. I don't see it. Do you know what I mean? I don't see it. It's not to say something won't happen.
Yeah.
But maybe a bit of regulation and intervention, a bit of checking in banks in Europe, for example. There's liquidity checks. You have to maintain a certain amount of capital if you are a bank, which, is necessary to run a particular country or whatever else. You wonder if we're now reaching the stage where technology companies that are sometimes bigger, like NVIDIA's 5 trillion. What's that? That's bigger than, about 98% of countries in the entire world, never mind anything else, bar, China, US, or whatever else, You sort of wonder, is it not time where someone goes, well, look, if the entire global economy is really dependent on, this type of technology and where we're going, maybe someone should lift the hood. Because Amazon themselves, remember it went down in the East, took out millions of websites, government sites in the UK not working. Yeah. Etihad, where I am flying, not working. Zoom not working. was down for 9 hours, millions of websites. Nobody batted an eyelid. What? That's 30% of the internet Amazon own. It wasn't 30% the center.
Well, and CrowdStrike before that, right? I mean, it's happened a couple times in the last year.
It is, and that's what the global economy is dependent on. But the rules for technology appear to be different than the rules for financial institutions. Arguably now, your software engineer who writes for one of these companies decides whether you get insurance, decides whether you get a job, decides whether your business is productive. And software engineers, I remember writing about this 3 years ago, saying I think software engineers should potentially go to jail. It didn't go down well, oddly enough, in software engineering circles. But if I'm a doctor and make a mistake, impact someone's life, the medical counsel are coming after me. If I'm a banker and I do something, same difference. If I'm a lawyer and I do naughty stuff in the world, then boom, But now software engineers, AI engineers, data science, this industry is arguably more impact on anybody's life than most of those people put together on a daily basis. So at what point do we actually set good ethical regulatory industry standards for software engineers, data sciences, and rulers, Roman godlike rulers of technology companies?
Yeah, so back to your initial question when we started, what's going on over here, right? So for those that don't know, Kieran is normally in the UK, although he's in Abu Dhabi today. Very exotic. So I thought it'd be good to get your perspective on some of the stuff that you see coming out of the US. But from my perspective, Kieran, it's a bit of a mixed bag, right? I mean, on one hand, you talk about regulation. On one hand, there's been a lot of deregulation of the tech space with this administration, a lot of pro AI, a lot of pro technology, a lot of pro tech infrastructure. And then, regulation on certain things that the, current administration deems worthy, kind of, I won't even call it regulation, right? But, pursuing certain groups, certain companies based on the things that they're doing. So like the FCC thing with all the, cable news and TV outlets and the late night talk shows and stuff. It's not regulation per se. It's kind of threat of regulation. So there's that stuff happening. But I think what's related to our main topic here today is kind of this, push towards more of an isolationist kind of economy where, they've raised the H-1B visa fees to make it harder for foreign workers to come in the U.S. We had a show, was it last week or the week before, about changes in NAFTA, North Atlantic Trade Alliance here with Mexico and Canada, and concerns in Canada and Mexico about the ability to kind of work in the U.S. or work for U.S. companies, and now you have this call center Keep Call Centers in America Act, which was announced bipartisan in over the summer, and it's another kind of again, it's in early stages. It's a bill, but another attempt of kind of keeping maybe the U.S. economy separate than the global economy. That seems to be the theme. That tariffs, I don't need to tell you about that. So lots of that kind of stuff happening, right?
Yeah, it's interesting what you hear this end of the pond, of course. Do you know what I mean? Because ultimately, I say this with the most graciousness. What America does is America's business. It's nobody else's business. And America, like any country, should technically look after itself and the citizens. From a European perspective, for decades, we've been led to believe that, America is the leading democracy of the world. It's the one that keeps capitalism alive, beneficial capitalism. It's the one that sets the global standards for governance and righteousness and whatever else. And then to basically go, right, we're off, thanks, we're at the party, but now we're no longer talking and we're not as friendly as you want. And no, your people can't come and work here and whatever. It feels like a strong message, but, it was Steve Bannon a couple of years ago said, look, don't worry about the truth. Just, flood the end zone with bullshit, and then the bits that are real and the bits that aren't real, nobody will notice. This one here is an interesting one because if you dig beneath it a bit, it hasn't gone into, actual law yet. Is it, two chaps in politics in the US attempting to do something correct, or are they bandwagoning, which is put it up, we tried, we were trying to protect our citizens, but nobody else better. Who knows? Politics is a gorgeously dirty game at the best of times. But, protecting jobs, that's a good thing. The downside of capitalism is, cheapest labor. That's one where everyone will go. The oddity is all those companies or countries that said, well, cheap labor, we're going to block you. You've got an advantage. None of them who were very technically far superior than these other countries ever went, well, hold on, we're technically superior, so we block ourselves. Tariffs fighting is a messy, messy world. Capitalism got problems, strips jobs out. If America first, get jobs into the country, fantastic. But the problem is, this, Dan, if you do it, we'll do it. So stick up a tariff, someone else will stick up a tariff. America's got a lot of strength because of its economy, but ultimately all these other countries will start doing trade deals with other places. They want the world's economy to flow. So I think it's actually shooting themselves in the foot. What Americans want to work in a call center, is that a big thing? The bit I'm actually hearing at the moment is, and again, you and I have seen this dance before, why don't we use RPA? Why don't we use automation technology to automate all of the contact centers, because they're all just costly exercises. What about customer service? What about complexity? Klarna themselves, you'll remember AI about a year or two ago, didn't they? About 1,500 workers, tried to get rid of them all with AI, and now reverse course going, actually customers have real complex problems, they have real emotional needs. So, I'm a bit conflicted. I don't want poor service wherever it is. You want people to have good careers and good jobs. This sector is being attacked by technology all the time. And it's rare to see a country or a company actually consider call centers a good place to be. It feels like one of those things that are constantly under attack. But for you and for me, we have to make the judgment call. Are we happy to pay for, that little bit extra to get a human on the end of the phone to try and answer a query who you hope to God has been trained? What are you seeing? What's the
Yeah.
US?
So you're right in the sense that, first of all, the reason why we're talking about this today and not in August, this was actually introduced in July, and hasn't gone too far, but in part because of the government shutdown. No legislation's going very far right now. The folks, the senators who proposed it are in Arizona and West Virginia, I believe. So these are places where there are call center workers. And I initially didn't give too much credo to the story, but then just seeing what's happened in the last couple months, I have this ongoing joke. It's not really funny, but this ongoing joke with my mom, because she had all these concerns with the current administration, and I spent the good part of the end of last year telling her that all these ridiculous things that she was concerned about were never going to come true, and then they've slowly started all coming true. So now I have to
argue with your mother, Dan. Never argue.
Right? I should have learned that lesson a long time ago. So so you have this. And based on some of the stuff that's happened, I don't think it's so far-fetched now, right? Because it's the timing may be good. I mean, like you said, tariffs, some of these trade deals that you see happening. There's been a push, manufacturing, coming back, push to bring manufacturing back into the U.S. So it's not so crazy now, seemingly. And just for those of you who didn't see it, so the bill is going to require call center work under federal contracts to be performed in the U.S., and it mandates that the Secretary of Labor maintain a publicly accessible list of employers that relocate call center operations overseas, essentially a blacklist, a shame list, if you will. It would make companies ineligible for federal grants and federal-backed loans, and would force them to disclose the physical location of any agents providing customer service. The bill also talks about AI, and it's kind of similar, treats AI kind of like offshoring. So you have to, say where the servers are, where the agents are, disclose that they're AI agents, and essentially penalize them. The goal is to supposedly keep human jobs in the U.S. and not allow those jobs to go overseas or become AI. So there's actually kind of two parts to the story: the kind of the human angle and then the AI angle. And I'm kind of in the same camp as you on the the AI angle, Kieran, which is you're kind of, you're delaying the inevitable. I mean, I'm a market guy. Like if you don't want, overseas people with accents picking up the phones, if you don't want AI doing it, then vote with your pocketbook, right? To force people to, force businesses, and it's complicated, right? I mean, you spend a lot of time in the call center space. It's not so simple to operate a contact center exclusively in the United States without AI technology.
No, it's not. But even then, the number of nationalities in the US, UK, Ireland, you're going to get a voice that isn't, your New York next door neighbor. Anyway, so that element's ridiculous. But here's the paradox. Are you as an American consumer happy to pay more money? Because tariffs aren't paid by me, they're paid by American consumers. Higher wages because American workers get higher wages, more rights than all these other countries. That means increasing cost to US citizens. So you're happy to pay the cost. That goes without saying. But in defense of this, when you sit back rationally, you go, well, American taxpayers are putting money into the American government and then seeing their tax dollars, rather than recreate jobs in the US economy and being recirculated, the money's going to another country, So in defense of the strategy itself, when it comes to government money, which is funded by American citizens to improve America, wonder what the criteria are beyond, dollars and cents is that actually says this is how we put together an actual country. In Ireland, if I take, that's where I live at the moment, you're sitting there going, if I'm funding taxes, do I want my taxes to work within the country? Do I want the wages to stay here, to invest, to grow the economy and something? Yeah, I do. Am I willing to pay more money? Well, let me just check on that one. How much more money, And equally speaking, we live in a global world, or until recently, we lived in a global world, non-isolationist. So it's interesting to see. My big one is I wonder if we'll see regionality, China, one country with, Russia, South Korea, whatever else, we see the US staying on its own, Canada now suddenly, NAFTA has to kick in. Otherwise Canada have, lesser economic rights. The European Union is bunkering down. We're almost getting regionalized again, as opposed to a bigger economy. And I don't know if that will dissuade the worst of capitalism, or make it a more controlled economy. Like China's not exactly doing too bad, when at the moment, see all the things you described about not allowing data offshore, actually managing the risks associated with AI, insisting that their citizens are made aware that AI is in use, that's made the Chinese economy really, really strong. So what isn't, normal in one country, I use the word normal in inverted commas, very much is somewhere else. So how much do you intervene or not, So I'm not surprised by anything. I've seen it all. I see it all internationally every day. This one is interesting only on the basis that I'm kind of pro a little bit of it, American taxpayer dollars should be used to help American citizens, but you are the policemen of the world. You are, and have been presented as years as the bastions of free speech, the people who do, even if it's hard, you make the right decision. Now the news coming to the rest of the world is, screw you, everyone else, if you're not American.
Well, and I think part of my issue with it, again, I try really hard not to get into politics on the show, but I think the issue with it is that there seems to be some things that are kind of hypocritical, right? I mean, a good chunk of the innovation in the United States comes from immigrants, right? People that have come, right? So now you basically, we don't want those people coming here anymore, but we want all the innovation to stay here. We don't want it to go out elsewhere. And then, how are we going to export these things? I think the other issue is, and I talked about this on the show. We did a show a few weeks ago about the H-1B visa thing. And if the goal is to keep American jobs in the US, I think that would have been a really interesting legislation in 1995, right? When the outsourcing industry started. But at this point, it's not outsourcing that's really the challenge now. It's technology, right? So maybe I can't get that person physically into the US, but I can still hire somebody overseas. And how are you going to police the I could take apart the contact center and say, okay, the person actually answering the phone's a human, but all of the work that happens after that's passed off by that human is going to happen in India or China, right? So that gets really hard to police. Companies can kind of deconstruct the process differently to avoid that. There's always loopholes with regulation, right? So I'm not really sure how you police that. In the meantime, people are just going to find the simpler, more eloquent, and maybe better innovative solution, which may be dealing with a company that's not based in the US, right? We live in a world that it's never been easier to get access to technology and resources. So I think it becomes a competitive disadvantage.
Joe, I think it will be, because if American companies have to benefit from it, they'll chuck tech at it to make it work economically, because you don't want to pay 2 or 3 times the service cost that you've already got. We're too used to free things, too used to cheap things.
Yeah.
So tech will allow you to get around it. You know what I mean? It's a bit of a no-brainer. But let's see. It'll be interesting to see how far it goes. But she said all the stuff we thought was crazy isn't. And therefore. But my one is this: I travel the world all the time. I meet people in every country, and I meet really intelligent, really interesting, really great people. And what makes society interesting is just good people, and it doesn't matter where they're from, working to create things that create better value for society. Like where I am at the moment, you take Dubai, for example, 6.5 million citizens, roughly about 200,000 of them are actual Emirati. The rest are non-indigenous, shall we say. What a tremendous economy. Do you know what I mean? What a tremendous economy. I look at London, and I look at, what is largely a multicultural city. Unfortunately, you see some of the usual stories coming out, horrible stuff at the moment. Small things been blown up, but London's a better financial city for everybody being there. The US, as I've seen it today, you see the number of, Indians, the number of Chinese, the number of, whatever the country is, Scandinavians, all making things that actually make the economy work. It does feel a bit from the outside as, look, we're not letting you in. We're going to build America first. But by the way, we want you to buy all this stuff. And, therefore, it feels like a win-lose, which is a win for America, a lose for everyone else. And basic, justice in the world says, Dan, if you and I are dealing with each other and you're winning and I'm losing all the time, well, we're probably not going to be friends after a while. I'll just wait, So I hope America, it's every time I went, it's been a wonderful place. It's been rich in culture. It's been rich in diversity. It works amazingly. Yes, there's problems in the US, but there's problems in every country. It does feel as if, I've got my football, I'm keeping it. You're not playing with it. We used to be on the same team. Now you're not. But I get why America and Trump wants America to be great. I get why it wants, the jobs. I get why it wants the money. But we're in such a digital, interconnected world that it doesn't quite feel correct. There must be another way of doing this to make it work.
I think there's 2 levels to the conversation, right? And you alluded to this. It's a good point, right? There's the policy. Is the policy correct, right? And then there's the implementation of that policy, right? So, I won't debate on this show whether or not an America first, policy is good or bad. That's a political conversation, I think. But it definitely has ramifications for all of us, especially in the tech space. But even if you agree that that's the right philosophy, how you get there, right? And I just don't think that this kind of legislation, gets us there. For one thing, it's I think actually hurting the people that it's intending to help. I think back to even the manufacturing conversation, right? Instead of trying to bring back manufacturing to an economy that doesn't really make sense to handle manufacturing, why don't we re-educate the people that are manufacturing into other jobs? Like to your point before about jobs, right? I've always thought that about manufacturing. To drag our feet on contact center transformation is just allowing those people to stay in jobs that are inevitably going to go away anyway. Why not start teaching them, embrace the AI, teach them how to use AI to make their jobs better and make them more employable instead of holding on to the hope that the job is going to stay the same forever. While, by the way, to your point, they're going to have to, their pay is going to go down. and inflation and cost of products is going to go up. So it's going to become more and more difficult for them to, sustain themselves.
Yeah, it seems a bit, when you start tearing it apart, it seems a bit mad because tech will be thrown at it. And again, it goes back to if you look at US society, American university, same UK, Ireland, we've all benefited from people coming into the country, that rich tapestry of life. Ireland years ago used to have a really great system, I think, which was employers coming into the country when they were promoting FDI, foreign direct investment. Basically, government went, how do we help you be pro? We'll put the right amount of legislation in to make sure that you don't, exceed the worst of capitalism. How do we work with the universities to create a very highly educated workforce? Because look, this is the way the world is moving, digital data, tech, and everything else. So then when countries or companies are looking to come into the country, they've got digital clusters, they've got great graduates, they've got well-trained people, a very international perspective. So we got the people, we got the government, we got the education system. And why don't we just keep a lid on costs so that, property isn't absolutely crazy? So any workers who want to come into the country, anybody who wants to work in the city can. I think over the last couple of years, arguably some of that's got out of control because Dublin ain't the cheapest place to be, nor is Galway, nor, and. So maybe it just goes back to, look, the intention feels right. How do we encourage job growth? How do we give people the dignity of a good salary, a good education? And I think it just needs a relook at the policy as opposed to, a big slap and a ban on foreign workers. End of, they're the problem, actually, not they're a solution to a lot of countries' problems. And why do we not, protect jobs that are inevitably going? Well, why don't we connect our business system, our education system, our employers, our own career pathing, and if we have a great government/business strategy, great technology strategy and training, great people and education system, we can grow the pie as we've done for decades, rather than here's my piece of the pie and you're not getting anything of it. You're not getting to eat it and we're not going to eat it. And we know it's going to rot, but, we'll just all pretend that everything will be okay and no one will hate us. Yeah. We'll win it all. It's a zero-sum game. We'll win it all and no one will mind.
Yeah, I think there's some merit in trying to, balance the playing field a little bit. But at the end of the day, you want to be free market, then be free market. Let people pay with their pocketbooks. And you know what? If you don't like calling American Express because their contact centers are overseas, then switch to Chase, right? That just show them what you want.
Yeah, 2 clicks and you can be served by anyone in the world or anything.
And that's the other thing, right? I said it's never been so easy to do business internationally. It's also never been so easy to switch. I mean, you could literally switch in bank accounts in 5-6 minutes now. I mean, so loyalty is a lot more transient than it used to be, much more fluid than it used to be.
100%. But loyalty is one way. It largely is one way, which is companies want to promote loyalty to get you to stay, but when it comes to it, is it reciprocated in the opposite direction? Now, as you say, it's 2 clicks. I look at my kids, you know what I mean? They're going, what's the best interest rate? Well, that's moved from 4.25 to 4.19, and someone else has moved to 4.75, which is gone. Do you know what I mean? So, that's why I kind of like competition. Keep it healthy, keep everyone honest. Keep it transparent, allow us to make, the decisions that, are in the best economics interest of us all, make the world actually go round as opposed to stopping cash flowing. And we will grow that bigger pie for the benefit of everyone, So let's see, it'll be interesting to see how it works out. As you said at the top end, your mother's always right. Remember that. That's the first thing. Never argue, Dan. You shouldn't be doing that. But I think, I get what's trying to be done. How we go about doing it globally is another matter. I'd love us to see it because I said I go to places every day, met Tunisians today, French today, Emirati today, Egyptians today, all amazing people, So if we're a little bit less of them and us and a little bit of we and you, and all of us together, we might actually make a planet that's works for us all. It might be a bit of fun to live in.
Kieran, always a pleasure, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for co-hosting again today and giving us some global perspective. I think we need it once in a while.
Yeah, every so often. You know what I mean? Remind that there's good people everywhere, my friend. Thanks for hosting me again, and thanks for everyone for listening in.
Thanks for joining, everybody. We'll be back Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. In the meantime, if there's anything that you're working on, please reach out to us via irpaai.org. We're here to help. We have over 130,000 members globally, all coming to us for education, networking, advice. So if there's anything you're working on, need help with, please let us know. Have a great week, everybody.
Be good.